This is going to be a video about how I got this free scooter, and whatever I make on this is going to be absolutely free money, so that's excellent. That's our 3 bikes off. Let me give you a little walk around. So this bike is the one I went to buy. It's a Honda CBF 125 2021 model. Come through, get the front shot, and it's got a lot of damage to the front here, so it's had a big accident on the front end. Headlight and all that stuff is busted up, tank is busted up, but it's got 1,000 miles from new, one owner, one careful owner, I'll add. He bought this bike brand new for 3,200 and I picked it up for a fraction of that. As I was on my way, or sort of arranging to collect it, the guy, it was his dad meeting me, he said, "Hey, you know what?" I said, "Do you have any other bikes?" He said, "Yeah, I've got a scooter you can have for free." And this is the one he gave me. So it's a 2015 Sim Jet 125, I think. So not a bad scooter, all complete. He said the engine is busted up, which I assume it is. 12,000 miles on the clock. So not terrible, but it's a free scooter. And my old granny had a saying. She said, "Never look a gift horse in the mouth." Not only that, so this scooter has got a blown up engine, but he gave me a spare one. So he said this one is for parts, but he said this engine is good. And so hopefully I'll be able to use the engine from this to fix this, and then sell this to get all of my money back, so that bike over there is free, and then I'll make all of my profit on that one. So looking pretty good, and it's a bit of a bugger because I've now got more work to do, which is a shame, but a free scooter is a free scooter. Worst case, I can always just sell this as is, but I'd like to fix it. So let's see how it goes in this video, and hopefully some of these bikes will be repaired. The guy I bought this scooter off, although it was free, he told me that the engine is not working, blown up, something's wrong with it. So I've pulled this cover off. This is just 4 screws, and I'll be able to just grab that old battery out the way and put this new one on, and we'll see if that helps to get the electrics going. I have switched in that new battery, and I've also pulled off this cover to have a little look. And inside here, this is where the spark plug goes, up where my finger is, and there is no spark plug installed. So I want to spin this thing over and just see if it turns over, what happens. So what I'm going to do is get my WD-40 and just put this little, I've got the end of it right in the cylinder, and I'm just going to fill up the cylinder with a bit of WD, and that will just help the engine to spin if it is going to spin. So let's see what happens if I just turn the key on, and we'll see what happens. Let's try the rear brake. So the engine does not want to spin. Okay, so there's juice going to that starter, and this is a fully charged battery that I have put in just now. The engine just doesn't want to turn over, so it's going to have some issue. I don't know what it is, but the guy told me it's got a blown engine. So let's just have a general look around the bike. I kind of am quite tempted just to sell this, but let's see what we've got. So we've got a pretty good front tyre. Front mud is mostly on, and it's all kind of there. Just spilled my tea, rookie error. A 15 plate, the exhaust is on, so it's definitely something I could fix if I had an engine, and this appears to be the spare engine. So the guy told me that this one does work in some shape or form, so I'm actually tempted to see if I can get this one to turn over and just see how the engine sounds, and then that might give me a good indication as to whether it's worth doing the work to try and switch over these engines. So what I'm going to do is grab that battery, put it into this dead piece of a junk bike, and then we'll see if we can this is the ignition wires, and I think if I join the red and the black and then I press the starter, this bike hopefully will turn over. So let me do that. I'll grab that battery, put it in this bike, and we will see if I'm able to get this thing to turn over. Okay, so I connected up my battery here, but man, this bike is rough. So I pulled the seat off. All this stuff is missing. Carburetor should be here. Starter motor should be there, but that's not there. I've got a feeling there's some broken stuff in this engine as well. Back wheel is obviously off. And coming around on this side, you can see this whole side of the engine is all apart and not looking so hot. So I can't even really test if this engine turns over. But what I can do quickly is just by hand just see. I mean, that actually feels all right, to be fair. So you can see as I'm turning that over, something's happening. My plan is, just for the fun of it, I'm going to see if I can get this bike running or at least turning over. And also it does make sense because this one here is kind of complete. So if I want to sell it as is, it makes a lot more sense just to put the couple of panels back on, sell it as is, have it gone. Whereas if I strip it down and work on it loads, then it'll be harder to sell. So if I just try and figure out if this engine works first, then if it does, then I can change it. And if not, I can just sell them both as is. So what I'll do is, here I've got this front wheel. I'll do this off camera because there's only one of me. But I'm going to put this on the front of the bike in there. Then I'll put the whole thing up on the centre stand, and then I'll be able to access everything a bit more easily. To put the front wheel on, I do need to get the disc in between these two, and they're quite tight. So what I tend to do in this sort of situation is spray some oil up in here, and then I can get a massive screwdriver like this one and just feed it up in here, and then pry those pads apart, and it will just make things a lot easier for getting the brake disc into place. I've pulled a few bits out of the way, and you can see just what state this bike's in. All of the airbox and all these bits were just on loosely, so I could just pull them out, throw them to one side, and it's not looking good. I mean, I think this engine has got compression, but not much if it has. So over there you can see my crusty old engine on the crusty old bike. The plan is I want to see if I can get that thing turning over on the starter. To do that, I need a load of parts that are on this engine. So I'm going to undo all of these little bolts around the side casing, strip this off, take out all of the internals and the starter motor, and then put them onto that engine. And then hopefully I'll be able to get this thing, or that one, spinning over on the button, and we'll see if it's got good compression, and if so, I might as well put it in here and see if it runs. So here goes nothing. I'm pulling off, and that came off pretty easily. This is where the Kickstarter should be, but it's missing. And this part I need, so this is like the flywheel, then it comes behind here. This is the variator. I need that one, I need the belt, all of this stuff needs to go on to that engine. This tool is essential for this kind of job, an impact driver. Nice and easy. So this whole thing should just pull off. It does. Then this belt pulls off just like this. And to get it off this piece at the back, actually, I'll undo this nut in a second. Then this one also just pulls off. If you guys are doing this at home, when you pull this off, don't let it come apart because there's stuff inside there that's just annoying to get back together. So just leave that all as one piece, put it to one side. Then I need to get my 14mm for this section here, and then I'll put all of this onto that bike over there. This piece I want to change because it's way rustier than the one from the other bike. I have loosened this nut off a bit because I'm going to hammer on it, but if I hammer on the thread I might mess it up and not be able to get a nut back on there. So I've loosened that off a bit, put some WD-40 behind, and I'll just give it a bit of a smack, and I think that might have done it. Let's see if we can get this thing off. So I'll drop that down, think this will come. I'll just tap this really gently. Ah, there we go. So that all came off as one piece. Then what I can do is grab this whole thing all complete together, and I just want to feed that straight back on. There's an order, if you guys are doing this at home, there's an order to do it. This back one has to go on first. So if I can just feed that in there, and that's on now. So that looks pretty good. And this front we'll do in a second. Then that goes back on there. So we'll tighten him up in a minute. Then, well, remember I told you guys not to let this fall apart, which is what I've now gone and done. But it's okay. So we'll put it that way down, pull the back off, and basically there's these three plastic things which go in this piece here. It's kind of tricky to do with one hand, but basically I'll put the plastic pieces back in there, and then that drops on there. Inside here, these are called the rollers, and these sort of fling themselves out. I should actually free these off. So I'll put a bit of WD in, actually no I won't. These need to be free, so I'll do that in a second when I've got two hands. And then this whole piece will go back up in there, and then we'll stitch all this up and see what happens. This part needs to really have a bit less rust on it, so I'm just going to use a bit of sandpaper and WD-40 to clean this up a little bit before I put everything back together. So I've got the belt and the variator on, and now I just need to put this piece on, and that just slips on here. There we are. And then I will need to give it a little tap with the hammer. I need to make sure it's seated properly before I do the nut up, or I'll have some problems. Can be a little bit tricky to line up all of these splines, but I think that is it. No. So I need to do this pretty carefully. You can see there's the splines on the crank, and these splines here also. So I have to line everything up before I clamp it down. So I'll do this up, then I'm going to put this whole side cover on, and then we will see if we can get the starter motor on. My starter motor is in this bike, so to access it I'm going to remove this piece under the seat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, then this whole thing should lift out. There's a little switch here that you have to undo, so that is out of the way. And then I should be able to access the starter motor. There it is, you guys can see it. I'll do it off camera because it's a bit of an awkward position, but I'm going to grab that starter motor and we'll throw it on that guy and see what happens. And there's my starter motor. I've just put it loosely in place, and I'll do these two 8mm bolts up. This is the earth grounding, which you need, and then this wire will just connect up to a connection box behind here, and then we should be good to go. Well, the starter motor is on and this side casing is on, so we are looking good, and I think I should be able to turn this thing over. I did connect up the wire here, that's the starter motor, it just goes to the main wiring loom here. I've put the battery back on as well, and I will do a little bit of my trusty WD-40 just down into the barrel, just to give it a little chance. Then what I will do is just see if I can spin it here. There we go. So that sounds pretty good. So the engine is turning over. Compression sounds okay. I mean, it probably won't be the best running engine in the world, but we've got half an engine. I think I will put this into the other scooter. To change the engine, I need to take off a lot of these panels, definitely this one coming around to the back. I think it might just be this silver one actually. So I'll see how I go. And then after that is off, I will need to remove this bolt, the bolt up here in the shock, and then just undo the various cables, so rear brake cable and throttle cable and all of this stuff in here. Basically disconnect all of this. I don't want this video to be really long, so I won't show this bit. I'm going to strip all this down and get the engine out of the bike. This is how the engine comes out of the bike, nice and clean on the centre stand with the back wheel attached. So now I just need to do the same for this one. So a little bit of the strip down process. So it's pretty straightforward. These bikes come apart pretty easily. Here's a quick shot of me pulling this engine out. Very straightforward. Again, it's just one bolt here, 2 bolts under here going to the engine mount, and then disattach the rear brake hose, throttle cable if it's there, and the electrical wires, and that's pretty much it. And then the whole thing just falls out. I've got these 2 engines side by side. This is the one that was in the scooter, which is no good, and this is the one that we're going to hopefully get running. So I need to switch over all of the best parts from this one onto that one, and I'll change out a couple of bits as well. So like this mudguard is in better condition from this engine, so I'll put it onto this one, and pretty much all of the bits that are decent either way, I'll pick the best ones. And I'm going to build this one up off camera just to save a bit of time, and then we'll put it back in the scooter. The exhaust here is going to cause some problems. It's very, very rusty, but I will probably be able to use it again, paint it. I just wanted to show a little trick how to get this back wheel off. So this rear wheel and tyre is good, and it's the only one we've got, so we need it. To get it off, the way that I recommend is to get a bar like this through the back wheel, because when you spin, I need to turn this nut, but without holding the back wheel it won't come off, so it'll be tricky to just capture here on camera, but you get the idea. Once I lock this bar into place, I'll be able to spin this nut with the wheel held, and then that back wheel nut will come off, and I should be able to drop that rear wheel off and out of the way. Before I try to run this bike, I need to make sure that it's got enough oil in it. So this is the engine that's going into the scooter, so I'll drain that oil down, and then there's almost none in there. Before I put it back in, I'll fill that back up with new oil. This exhaust has seen much better days, so I'm going to do a really quick spinny wheel treatment. You get the idea. This is the only exhaust paint I've got, silver, not ideal, but I'll throw this on and it will have a bit of protection before it goes back on the scooter. So there's my engine all built up. I've got everything on it, and all I need to do is lift this whole scooter up and onto the engine, put the engine mount bolts in, and then plug everything back in. So I think that I've connected everything back up now. The carburetor is loose, and the reason is, as usual, I'm going to get a tiny bit of petrol from this. So I'll just get a bit here, put it down inside the cylinder, and that'll just give things a little bit of a boost. So if we push that carb back on, let's see what happens. We've got nothing to lose, so let's have a go. So just a little trick for you guys. I forgot this, but I've worked on these sim scooters before. This little wire here is quite important. So this is an engine cut-off switch that's under the seat. So I have to connect these back together. I forgot to do that. And then press unlock here. Then that will allow the engine to run. And what I've done is I've just disconnected the HT lead, which is this, from the spark cylinder head thing. And then if I test it again, nice, so now you can see that sparking. So I'll connect the spark plug back up, and then we'll try again. I nearly forgot to put engine oil in the scooter before I run it, so I'll put in 750 mils into this bottle and then use this nozzle to refill the engine. I've just put a bit more petrol in the engine. Let's try it again. Full throttle this time. Yes. So I checked on the suction. I'll talk you guys through this. So here is the fuel diaphragm. The top one is where the petrol comes out from, and that goes into the engine. But this bottom one is a suction valve, a suction hose. So when you turn the engine over, it creates a vacuum in this, and then that opens up the diaphragm valve, and then it allows fuel to come down. So these have to be connected on. So this one was connected, but this one wasn't connected, and so that would not allow a vacuum, which is not ideal. So I've connected that up now. So hopefully, if I spin the engine over again, the vacuum will work and we'll start to see petrol come through. You're looking good. So I took the airbox off and I fed petrol in as I was. It doesn't sound great, but it's running. That is what I'm talking about. Engine is, exhaust is blowing a bit, but it is a running scooter. Yeah, boy. That's what I'm talking about. So it's looking good. I'm just going to let it tick over for a bit and clean out a bit of smoke. Maybe I should give it a bit of red. It'll probably die, but we'll give it a go. Yeah, so it will need a bit of TLC. So leave it with me. I'm going to throw all these parts on. I don't want this video to be really long, so I'll throw it all back together, check back in with you when it's all sorted. So there we have it, folks. One running-ish Sim 50cc scooter that I got for free, and I've thrown it together in this video. There's a few things just to tidy up, which I'll do off camera. But there you go. That's how you get a free scooter. So the engine runs, back wheel spinning, and I dare say this could be a nice scooter for someone. I'm not going to sell this as any sort of retail sale. I'll be selling this as a spares repair project kind of situation, but someone will buy this and do fine with it. It's just not one that I'm going to put any more time into. It's only taken me about 4 hours to do this. So there we are, that's my Sim 50cc scooter. I also still have all of this lot to pick through, so I'll take out stuff like this that works. All of those little bits I'll put to one side and either sell them on eBay, or I might just give them to a mate of mine who's got a parts business for free, just to sell on. But there's a lot of value here, like all these little regulators, the master cylinder, clocks, a load of stuff in there is, you know, it's got some value. And then the rest I'll just send to the scrapyard, and that is it. That's my scooter project. So I hope you enjoyed it. It's a bit out of the ordinary for me, but there you are. That was it, and I'll see you on the next one.